Hey, it's Chris. To celebrate the release of my new wallpaper packs for your Apple devices, I thought I would take this opportunity to share with you how to create your own custom wallpapers using Affinity Photo and an iPad. All right, so you can see here some of the wallpapers that I've designed recently, like this one, which comes from the Ripple pack that's available on the website. And even if you're not really in the mood to create your own wallpaper, it still could be kind of fun just to see the process that goes into it. So today I'm gonna be walking you through the process of creating an abstract wallpaper. Not this one. This one's available in the store. But again, if you're just kind of curious, how do you make something that looks like this? Is actually a lot easier than you would think. Then you should end up really liking this video. It should be fun. So what are you gonna need? Obviously, you're gonna want an iPad, although really these techniques could also work on a Mac. And I'm gonna be using Affinity Photo, so you could grab that app if you don't already have it. That's this purple app over here. But honestly, these same techniques can kind of be used in a variety of apps like Procreate or Photoshop or anything like that. And if you've got one, grab an Apple Pencil, but if you wanna just use a mouse or even your finger, you can do that too. And of course, I'm gonna be using a paper-like screen protector. It's not necessary, it's optional, but I don't like to be without it. So I'm gonna go ahead and launch Affinity Photo here. I'm gonna get out of this wallpaper. I'm gonna hit the little plus icon in the top right, and then I'm gonna select New Document. And by the way, if you don't know a whole bunch about Affinity Photo, that's totally cool. Just follow along with me and I'll point out the icons and stuff that we're gonna use as we go. Now, what makes the most sense is to design for the largest display that you're gonna display this on first, like your Mac or your iPad, and then scale things down for smaller screens like your iPhone. So in our document setup page here, we're gonna change this from photo to device. And it's nice, it comes preloaded with several devices for you. So this is already set to a 12.9-inch Retina iPad, but you can see there's different iPhones, Apple Watches, etc. We're gonna keep it set for the 12.9-inch Retina iPad. So what that does is give us the correct dimensions. I'm gonna leave the color RGB. The only thing you might wanna change is the orientation. I'm gonna leave it in horizontal because that's how I use my iPad the most, usually at my desk on the Magic Keyboard. So I wanna design it how I'm gonna end up seeing it. And just go ahead and hit OK. Now what I've got in mind here is doing something kind of along the lines of my iPad Air wallpaper set, which kind of has some cool shapes and gradients, which got its colors from the 2022 iPad Air lineup, which might look kind of complicated, but it's really not. It's just a bunch of shapes that are layered on top of each other, and then a blur filter applied on top of everything, just to keep it nice and in the background and not distracting when you're looking at your apps. So a design like this really lives or dies based on the colors that you use. If you use some ugly colors, it's just not gonna look good. So we're gonna find something that we can use a photo for inspiration. So what I'm gonna do is pull up Safari in a slide over window here, and I am going to go to the Tesla website, and I'm gonna act like I'm building a Tesla here. And instead of actually buying the Tesla, I'm just gonna screenshot these available colors. So I'm gonna take my Apple Pencil and just drag up from the bottom left corner, and then I'm gonna narrow down the section of the screen that I'm getting the screenshot of, and I'm gonna hit done and save it to photos. Once I've got that saved, I'm gonna hop back into Affinity Photo. I'm gonna swipe up, and I'm gonna drag my photos into a slide over, and then I'm gonna take that screenshot and drag it onto my canvas. And then we'll just go ahead and get rid of slide over. And so what we're gonna end up using the screenshot for is to use the eyedropper tool to pull out some different colors, some shades of the color of the car to use in the design. So I'm just gonna move that up into the top right corner, maybe resize it just a little bit so it's more out of the way. So I'm gonna go up into the top right corner of the screen here and tap on layers. You can see there's just one layer, and if I hit the check mark here, I can turn that layer on or off, the visibility. And the very first thing that we're gonna do here is add a fill layer, a dark fill layer that we can build on top of. So in my layers window, I'm gonna hit on this plus icon and tap fill layer. And you can see I've got two layers now, and this fill layer is now covering up our car screenshot. So I'm gonna grab that, drag it down underneath and drop it, and now we have things in the correct order. So the next thing we're gonna do is change the color of this fill layer, which is something we're gonna do quite a bit throughout this tutorial, so you might as well get familiar with the process. So I wanna make sure that my fill layer is selected, so I'm gonna tap on it. Then I'm gonna come over to the left side of Affinity Photo here, and the third icon down is the color picker tool. So I'm gonna grab that, hide my layers, and then I'm gonna zoom in to my car here, and then I'm just gonna tap and hold my pencil down on the screen, and as I move it around, you can see that there's a window that shows up that shows me what color my pencil is aimed at. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick the darkest color that I can find, the darkest shade of blue on this car, and select it. And when I do and let go, you can see that it changes that fill color. So I'm gonna zoom back out, reposition here. By the way, a cool tip here in Affinity Photo is if you ever make a mistake, just use 2 fingers and tap on the screen and it will undo whatever you just did. Or if you need to redo it, just 3 fingers and it'll come back. All right, this is gonna be a little bit like Bob Ross. There's no mistakes here. But what I'm gonna do is come into my layers and make sure that that screenshot is hidden so it's out of the way. Then I'm gonna come all the way over to the left side of the screen and tap on this rectangle icon here, and it's gonna give me all the different shapes that I can draw. So I'm gonna select the ellipse tool, and I'm gonna go ahead and just draw an ellipse here. And if I put a finger down on the screen, it's gonna make it a perfect ellipse. Now, this ellipse is just camouflage against the background, so we need to change the color. So I'm gonna go back into layers, and I'm gonna bring back that car screenshot. And then I wanna make sure that I've got the ellipse layer selected. I'm gonna go back over to my color picker, make sure that that's selected. Then I'm gonna pick out a new color, a slightly less dark blue for this ellipse. All right, so that's what I settled on, something pretty subtle, because what we're gonna do is make a variety of shapes and kind of stack them on top of each other and spread them out across the canvas. So then I'm gonna go ahead and hide that screenshot layer again, and I'm gonna use the arrow tool, the move tool, and I'm gonna drag that ellipse right over to the side of the canvas and just kind of leave it hanging off, maybe a little bit down. And now we're gonna add a little bit of an effect to this ellipse. So we're gonna head over here to this funnel on the right-hand side and scroll down through all the different effects until we find one that says pinch punch. There it is. I'm gonna tap on it, and then right across the bottom here, you'll see some controls pop up, and these are gonna control how this effect looks. So I'm gonna go ahead and say pinch punch. I'm gonna drag that with my Apple Pencil all the way up to 100. And for radius, I'm gonna drag that all the way up to 1024. Now I know it doesn't look like anything's happened so far, but I'm gonna grab in the middle of the screen and drag over near our circle. And you can see it's kind of starting to turn into a blob. It's moving around. And so I'm just gonna make it look a little bit funky here. I want it to be kind of subtle, just a fun little shape. And down at the bottom, when you're done, when you get it where you want, don't forget to hit apply. And now we're just gonna kind of repeat this process several times until we move across the whole canvas and get a look that we like. So I'm gonna come back over to my shapes tool and draw myself another ellipse. I'm gonna hold my finger down so that it's a perfect one. And then I'm gonna come back into my layers, turn back on our screenshot, grab the color picker tool, and find a slightly less dark shade of blue once again. Then I'm gonna go ahead and get that screenshot out of the way. You could leave it there if you wanted to, but then I'm gonna drag the layer that has the new ellipse underneath the other layer that has the old one. And then I'm gonna grab my move tool and I'm gonna move this underneath that first shape that we drew. And guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna do pinch punch one more time. And pinch punch is still up here. I'm gonna tap on it. Once again, I'm gonna dial up the pinch punch effect 100%, turn the radius all the way up, and I'm gonna drag in here till I get kind of a fun little blob. You can kind of make it match the other one, or it can be a little bit different, slightly off. It's kind of whatever you want it to be. There's not really any rules here. It's just whatever you think looks good. Now I'm gonna go ahead and place several more of these, just making sure that the shades are a little bit less dark every time and moving them over and under just slightly every time. Then we'll reconvene about halfway through and just see how things are looking. All right, so here's where I'm at so far. I've got 5 circles. Each one is a little bit bigger than the last one. Each one's a slightly lighter shade of blue that I pulled out of that Tesla picture than the last one. And each one has that pinch punch effect applied. So now what I'm gonna do is just make one more real quick. So I'm gonna draw this out and let's bring back our layer here so that we can get some colors out of it. I'm gonna make this the lightest layer so far, the lightest blue. So that's pretty light. And let's see, let's drag that underneath. The other ones here, get that on the bottom, and then I'm gonna make it a little bigger, make it a perfect circle still. I just want it to be just barely peeking out there. That looks good. And then we're gonna do pinch punch, dial it up to the max. All right, and then I'm gonna drag in to kind of keep this flowy shape going here. Something like that. All right, so here's the thing. We're gonna kind of consider that lightest layer to be sort of the midpoint, the middle of this design. And I'm gonna keep making these shapes and keep this pattern radiating out across the canvas, but we're gonna start reversing the colors that we're using based on the ones we already did. So I'm gonna shrink the canvas down a little bit, make myself another circle, And let's see, it's gonna be a little bit bigger than that. I'm gonna drag that over and let's make sure that it's underneath. And then we're gonna grab the color right before the last color that we did. So see what I mean? We're gonna start reversing all the colors, working our way backwards. But still the same thing. We're gonna come in here and do pinch punch on it, dial it up all the way, and kind of place that wherever. It doesn't have to be perfectly centered or anything. I'm gonna make it a little funkier. Hit apply, and I'm just gonna keep doing that until we get all the way back to the starting color. All right, so that's that. We kind of got this cool blobby abstract shape thing happening. So let's do this. Let's hit the 3 dots in the top left corner and let's go down to merge and let's say merge visible. And if we go over to our layers, we'll see that we've got a new layer that's all the layers that we've created already just smushed together. They're all combined into one layer. And now we can manipulate that layer in a variety of ways. And actually what I wanna do is select that layer and then hit the 3 dots and say duplicate. And I'm just gonna duplicate it a couple of times here so that I can do a few different effects to it without ruining the original. So we're gonna just select one of those layers and we're gonna go back into our funnel, and there's a bunch of different blurs that we could apply. Like the box blur will just blur everything together, and you can kind of dial that in to just kind of make a nice, smooth, subtle thing. And that looks good, honestly, that's cool. But I'm gonna cancel that. And we're gonna go back into the funnel and we're looking for the depth of field blur. So we're gonna tap on that and you're gonna see that we get these 2 circles here. And what this is gonna do is leave some of this layer in focus and then blur the rest out, which is gonna look really great. So I'm actually just gonna leave it right in the middle, and I'm gonna leave it elliptical. I'm gonna change the radius here. I'm gonna dial it all the way up to 100%. And then you can see the center here remains in focus, and we kind of have this fall off blur around the edges that looks really cool. So right above the filter icon, there's this icon with 3 dots. If you tap on that, we're gonna click on HSL here, and that's gonna bring up some different options down at the bottom. Go ahead and tap on ranges, and check this out. We're gonna slide this top slider here, and as we do, we can really easily change the color of our background here. So this is a great way to just sort of play with a bunch of different colors and dial in the exact color that you want without going back and recoloring every layer that you originally made. So I actually really like this teal color that I ended up with here, but I'm gonna go ahead and hit 2 fingers to undo that, because I like this blue Tesla theme that we have going on. And actually, if you followed along or you didn't, but you like this one and you wanna use it, I'll leave a link where you can download it down in the description, along with a link to my new wallpaper store, so you can check those out. So there you go. Hopefully you learned something from this tutorial. Go check out the new wallpapers. They're linked up down in the description. There's something for everybody there. I had a lot of fun designing those and making them. Also, don't forget to check out the podcast. I know it's been a minute, but I've been busy making some wallpapers for your devices, so that's why. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Later.